Children under the age of 5 could soon be the next and the last group of people in the United States eligible to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The FDA and CDC are reviewing data from a study on Pfizer's vaccine for children ages 6 months to 5 years old. Dr. Tanya Altman is a pediatrician and spokesperson for the American Academy of Pediatrics. She joins us tonight. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with that Pfizer study and why they waited so long to present the data to the FDA.
So I think that's a really good question. And in December, the initial data came out. And what Pfizer said was that they tried a 3 microgram dose, which is a third of the adult dose, which is 30 micrograms. And they tested it on kids 6 months to 5 years old. And the data showed that it was safe throughout, and that in the younger kids, the 6 month to 2 year age group, it showed that they did elicit the same antibody response as 5 and up. So that means 5 years to 12 years, teenagers and adults. And that is the antibody response that is deemed to be most effective. But in the kids 2 to 5, they didn't see that same effectiveness in the antibody response. So they wanted to add a third dose to see if that made a difference. And that's why they did initially submit the data. What happened in the meantime? Omicron happened. And we had tons of kids that were infected, 3.5 million kids just in January affected with Omicron. And that's when they looked at it and said, maybe we should start giving this vaccine to all the little kids to get them some protection while we wait to see if that third dose is truly needed.
Okay, so a lot of parents, though, still nervous about this, especially about possible long-term effects for their very young children. What is your advice to parents who are reluctant to get their kids vaccinated, especially this young?
Well, the first thing I want parents to do is wait. You don't have to make a decision right now. First, we really need to see all the information. So on February 15th, the FDA Advisory Committee is going to meet and go through all of the data in a very thorough and rigorous process. And then it will then go to the CDC Advisory Committee. So we still have a lot of steps to go through. In general, I like to let parents know that with vaccines, it is very rare that you would see long-term side effects. Most of the side effects that we see, and this holds with the COVID-19 vaccine, which we've given to billions of people around the world, is that you see those side effects within the first 6 weeks. So I really don't have concerns about long-term side effects, but I would like more data before I sit down and have this conversation with the parents in my practice about whether or not to vaccinate their little kids 6 months to 5 years of age.
And something that should be paid attention to, right, is the long-term effects of the virus itself. We know what it does somewhat to adults, but what do we know about long-haul COVID in children?
So that's a really good question, and we don't know enough yet, but we are getting more and more data as time goes on. And what we know from the earlier types of COVID-19, Alpha and Delta, is that we did see long COVID in kids and teens. I would see kids weeks and months later come into my office still fatigued, still brain fog, getting recurrent sinus infections and other infections. Plus, we know that we're seeing an increase in type 1 diabetes now from kids who have had COVID in the past. And then, of course, there's the MIS-C, which is a very severe inflammatory syndrome that we did see in kids, which, unfortunately put too many kids in the hospital. Now, it does look like Omicron is less severe, and we are seeing fewer cases of MIS-C. We also know that in the kids who received the vaccine, older kids, and then came down with Omicron or COVID-19, they seem to be less likely to get these long-term side effects of having the virus. But the virus is one that does stay in your system, and we are only beginning to understand the long-term implications that it may have.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it does appear to be milder in children, but the number of children hospitalized was at an all-time high at the peak of Omicron. Is that just a numbers game because more people overall are getting COVID?
Exactly. So Omicron casted such a wide net that you had such a large number of kids infected that even though only a small percentage might end up seriously ill or in the hospital, a small percentage of a very large number is still a very large number. And that's the problem that's overwhelming our healthcare system and also causing too many kids to end up in serious danger.
Well, Tanya Altman, Dr. Altman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know a lot of parents are paying close attention to these developments.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.